Hi, my name is Chad Lavamanier. I'm a senior product designer on the UX Papercuts team, and this is my first UX showcase at GitLab, which is a little nerve-wracking. Um, I've only been here effectively for about 4 months or so, and I haven't really worked on any long-term projects yet. Most of the work I do is kind of small fixes. So, I was thinking, what do I have to show? What do I have to share in a UX showcase? I talked with a few folks about some different options, and I realized that maybe the most effective thing I can do at this point is kind of throw down an Uno reverse card and say, actually, you teach me about something. So this is my UX showcase. Tell me about your design workflow at GitLab. Um, why have I done this to you? Uh, I'm new to the company and my role is a little different from the way that designers normally operate at GitLab, so I don't have a lot of visibility into your design workflow. And when we were in Las Vegas last week for Summit, Pedro and Gina ran an in-person product design studio that really got me thinking about how little I know about your day-to-day workflow and life as kind of more traditional designers within GitLab. So I want to know about how designers at GitLab work. So how is this going to work? I've got some questions to prompt you, but my goal here is really just to facilitate a conversation. And I know this is not a difficult thing to find at GitLab, but I do need a note taker because I can't see the doc while I'm doing this. Um, so, maybe that'll be crowdsourced or something, but if someone wants to take point on it, I would appreciate it. Um, I know that there's a whole page in our handbook that is lovingly maintained about the designer workflow, but I think it's a little bit vague and probably necessarily so about some of these points to avoid being prescriptive. It says product designers are responsible for work assignments in their stage group and at the UX department level, full stop. But it doesn't get into details about how decisions are made about those, how transparency is achieved about where things are in the process, all that sort of thing. I think that's probably necessarily kind of as, teams of one left to the individual, but I want to basically kind of see how are you doing it? What is your flow? So my first prompt is like, how do you find out what design work actually like needs to get done in the area that you have responsibility for? And I think we can kind of do this and kind of just be like a call it out kind of thing. I'm not, you don't have to raise your hand. Also, if any of these questions are like, that doesn't make any sense at GitLab, please let me know about that too.
I'll start because I shared in the product monthly yesterday the later session. So once my team, my PM and I have a UX roadmap or UX themes to work from for the year, we just kind of like start picking out of those themes. My PM and I have prioritized those. So I meet with my PM once a week and we talk about ongoing work, and then towards the end of the milestone we talk about what we want to prioritize on, but it's usually pulled from that theme. Ideally, that is other, of course, there's always things that like come up where, you know, a CSM or a customer or somebody will open up an issue and it's like a quick fix, a quick win. And so we'll also like slot that into the next milestone planning. But for Secure and Govern, we have a milestone planning meeting where we all discuss what we're going to be working on in that upcoming milestone to identify areas of overlap among Secure and Govern anyway. And the PMs try to attend that session as well. So that's my flow.
Okay, so it sounds like you were usually aware pretty far in advance of stuff you're going to need to tackle.
Yeah, we try to work, the idea to work more strategically. So like think of a that covers a workflow rather than bouncing around to different parts of the product that my stage touches. So we try to be strategic about it. Of course, there's things that come up. There's AI stuff, for example, that comes up all the time. There's some kind of push to sure an AI feature. There are things that come up that we do need to kind of like slot in, but ideally we're trying to work more strategically by creating that UX roadmap in advance. I love this format and these questions. I would love to hear how other people may differ in their process.
I'm just going to sit here and stare at you until someone else shares with me.
So I'm gonna provide a different angle because maybe like you, Chad, I think I work differently from everyone else. So for since I think a year ago, what I've been doing is just talking with the different product design managers on what their teams are working on and trying to find ways to support the product designers in those stage groups, important projects that are very complex or designers that I can balance my strengths with, help them evolve those aspects of their skills, or just designers that are new to GitLab, and my assistance would be helpful. And also looking at the gaps in our roadmap that the teams are working on that are very important to the company, and are also very important. So yeah, it's a different way. So basically, I'm kind of like a product manager for my own roadmap in a way. But yeah, I also try to pick things that I can either do myself, or I try to influence others and create a business case to have other people help me build things together. Although right now I'm more assigned to the Google Cloud integration project because it kind of falls in the gaps of those stage groups. There are other things that I'm working on, like the product design studios, and maybe a few other things that I have plans to work on later that fall a bit outside of that. But yeah, just an angle that is completely different.
I have more questions. So oh yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, it was a continuation, but if is yours a continuation or changing?
I think it's a follow-up question to this. So please, if you got more to add, go ahead. We
Yeah,
don't have
I
to
will
hit all
say
the prompts.
okay. I'll just say quickly, like Pedro, I'm maybe an outlier as well. I've never been in a stage group before Foundations. Like I joined the company as a visual designer, actually under the research department at the time. And so never have worked through typical designer, flows as well. So I suppose there might be many of us that are kind of experiencing things the same way as you do. I'm still learning every day about how other designers are working and how they're solving problems and whatnot. But particularly how I find out what I need to do, a lot of it is just I'm picking up on threads in Slack or picking up on issues or things that I'm getting pinged on and starting to try to pull together themes and concepts like, hey, I noticed that, oh, our filter bar gets a ton of, questions or problems or feedback. It's sus related. Oh, that's something that we should work on. Like we're constantly in Foundations bubbling up like, hey, I'm hearing a lot of things about X component. We need to really focus on this potentially or whatnot. And then underlying things of what we can do to support everyone else. So a little bit different than I'll try to keep it short there.
Chad, I think what I'm finding, listening to everyone, is that we all slightly work in different ways. So I can give an insight into working for film. Um, and I've got experience working because when I first joined the company in 2019, I was working secure, and that was milestone to milestone work. But one of the things we found in fulfillment is that we work on initiatives that span multiple groups. And so there was an experiment in Q3 to switch our working model over to projects opposed to a designer working for a particular team or group. And what that allows us to do is to be a little bit more flexible, working with multiple stakeholders across multiple groups for kind of key initiatives, like high impact work for the business primarily. And I think having worked in both formats, the reason why I love working in this way in fulfillment is mainly because what I found was we're slightly artificially trying to squeeze in work into milestones that maybe didn't fit within a milestone. So the way I like to look at it now is kind of the project is the OKR, for use of a better term, and deliverables are kind of work that needs to be done within a milestone because there still needs to be a roadmap to deliver the work. And it allows you to kind of float in the clouds a little bit and then come down to the coal face and to be a little bit more strategic and intentional on the things that you're currently working on that are going to fulfill the needs of the project. And in fulfillment, we have a lot of projects. I think some of them come overnight and some of them are long term. But there's one key denominator. All of the projects are usually e-group initiated. And again, it kind of gives the idea of how important usually they are for the business. So working in this way via projects has really helped. And just to add also very quickly, I think Emily does a really good job of setting the agenda. So every quarter we have a kind of a high level initiative where we kind of give projects grades on large, medium, and small, and then that's how I kind of gauge capacity. And now that we have another designer, Lena, I'm very excited to not just be the only designer working on that on the group per se. So yeah, another perspective.
Yeah, I want to add to that. I mean, I did talk about how exactly I work. In our team, we rely a lot on the quad syncs, like for things that we have potentially missed out that are matching to our current quarters themes. But we also keep on discussing about like what we are going to do, like let's say 2 quarters in advance. So we are well prepared when we arrive there, like with research insights, with everything that we need to make quick decisions. But one thing that I've learned over time, like working for like with about 5 product managers, that it is very important for product designers to kind of form a process of their own and not always like try to come up with a new way of working every time you are like assigned to work with a new product counterpart. And that really helps. So keep a few rituals of with what works and just keep on like maybe improving it with time, but abandoning those never works. I also wrote about this experience of like managing my capacity as a product designer, which is here in the link that I've added up, like in the second point. And it was a result of working for a couple years with my manager and understanding how I can like, stay up to date and at the same time make sure that I'm way ahead engineering and not always struggling with design deliverables. And there were things that really worked out. It also has suggestions or like references to how other team members in CI/CD UX do certain things. So I think that's worth giving a look.
I'm going to move on to my next kind of follow-up to that. So it sounds like some people are going and finding things. Some people are kind of working with a product leader to like plan in advance things they're going to work on. Some things are coming down from e-group to just kind of like, hey, these are projects that all need to be worked on. We got to triage which are more important. Generally speaking, like how far in advance are you finding out about work that you need to do? Far enough in advance to do it to a level that you're comfortable with, or how's everybody finding that?
For me, it's about like 2 quarters in advance at least. Yeah, so I know what I'll be working on in Q2 and Q3 right now.
Me, it's definitely a mix. It could be tomorrow. I find out something needs to be done yesterday. And other alternatives are like really long-term initiatives that are like pushed out into the months. Sometimes very rarely, but into the years even. There are a couple of things that we worked on that have spanned like a full year, a full 4 quarters. So it just depends on the importance of the project.
And Tim, do you think that that's probably directly related to the fact that a lot of your team's deliverables kind of come down from e-group?
Yes, and then yes and no. I think naturally, because of the just the yeah, because of the way that work flows down, um, it does it can span out in that way where things are needed yesterday. But then on top of that, we just have some really awesome, and I'm going to pick up the team here. We have some really awesome PMs on fulfillment who really, really do a great job in setting expectations, initiative and strategy. So working alongside them, we have a mix of both. And that kind of keeps you sane, right? It would be very difficult to be working on things that needs to be done yesterday and all the time. It's good to have long-term initiatives that you can kind of plot out and plan towards.
And then I'll just reiterate for me, I could be working on something that, I mean, I want to prioritize the themes that are in the now bucket. So that's, or the theme that we're working on at the moment. So that's, 1 or 2 milestones. But like I said, I mean, there's always things that pop up that are a quick win, or something comes up when a developer starts breaking down the work, and in the merge request process, we may need to, break things up into different iterations. So find myself going back to a design that was completed, which is a separate topic altogether. We're actually going to try more of like a design engineering pairing before like the design handoff is complete. We're going to have more engineering involved as part of that design process to consider technical constraints within the design handoffs, not to restrict the design, but just to make it possible to release in defined iterations up front, so we don't run into that at the merge request level. So yeah, try to balance it a couple milestones out, and things come up last minute.
That's true. I mean, there are always surprises. There could be some customer requests that have to be looked at on a priority, or some unaccounted engineering concerns that just don't show up until it's like that moment when it's being developed, no matter how much hard we try. So I think it's best to like keep in mind that we have some capacity to spare for things like surprises that might just come in our way.
Cool. This next one is more about transparency. How do you communicate where your designs are in process? Like, are most folks working off of they got assigned to you to do design work on, or is design kind of just like a casual thing that's happening before an issue really kind of formally gets created? Or I'm guessing the answer is, as always, it varies, but I'm interested to hear what everyone's individual experience is with that.
For me, the product development flow labels have like been working well so far, and I rely heavily on issues to be the SSOT. I know that there are some teams that create a separate design issue for a work that needs to be done, and then the development discussions happen on another issue. I have worked like that in the past, but it just caused a lot of confusion for my team. So we just went back to having all the discussion on a single issue. Um, yeah, that's been going fine.
I don't know if Camelia wants to share, but there is an issue for the design status banner that I think she pinged us all in. I'm putting it in the agenda. Camelia, I see you're on the call, but I don't know if you can speak to this right now. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. Sorry.
Yeah, when that conversation started a couple days ago, I was like, yes, this is related to a
No
thing I had.
worries. I just don't know when to jump in because everyone is speaking. I feel like I have a time lag. So each time I try to turn it on my speaker, I feel like I'm interrupting someone. So for me, it's really I start using this banner recently. It's very helpful because I've been jumping into different groups and some designs have been done like maybe 3 or 6 months ago and recently being picked up. So I kind of have a memory issue to remember like what I have done before. So with the checklist that status banner I did on the each screen is easier. And there is another reason I use it because my team, both of them, we work in a way that when design is done, we close the issue. So engineer can start the discussion on different issues so we don't get mixed like conversations all over one issue. And it's cleaner and easier to find out the old comments. So like when design is done, it will be ported to Epic or engineer issue. So with the status banner on each screen is make it more clear for the engineer to know that like what we have been done.
So the design issue is actually getting added to an epic, or turned, or like that content is being turned into an epic.
Most of the time is there is Epic because
Yeah, I
there
guess.
are like usually issues opened to the Epic. It's not one. So it's easier for both me and I think the other team member to follow it. So we have one Epic and usually they have design issue. If there is a research issue, there is a research issue, and then there's an engineer issue related to it. And then in this way, it's also like very easy to focus on discussion different issues. If it's about discussing on the backend issue, if it's design, we discuss on the design issue.
And then the issue that you opened to start a conversation about the like design status bar, is that something you've been doing for a while in your design assets?
I started, I think early this year is already more than like a quarter, I believe, and I already collect some feedback from the engineer team. Like I think it's quite positive. They all think it's very helpful and easy for them to follow.
Mm. Unless anyone else says anything about like communicating, I can move on. But I feel like this is probably where the most opportunity for things to go right or whatever is. So I don't know if anyone has other things to share about kind of like transparency into where designs are in the process.
Yeah, we don't
No.
have like a
Oh,
formalized process per se. I mean, I usually there's conversation in an issue. I make sure that I'm filling out the description of the issue with like, okay, do we know the persona? What's the job here? Do we understand the problem? Do we need to do more problem validation? Like once all of that pre-work is done, is there a competitive analysis that needs to take place? Understanding the scope and the timeline and things like that. Like that always comes first. And then the design process will start. And it's just like an ongoing conversation. Like personally, I'll post designs in the issues and ping engineers, PM, my manager, Justin, other secure and governed designers, or other designers that I know are working on similar initiatives. Like I've been pinging Libor on some things because we're both working on dashboard stuff. I know Gina opened an issue about dashboards. So trying to identify like where there's overlap because it's just too noisy to ping like all of the UX team or all of the design team and say, hey, can I get your eyes on this for every single one? So trying to be selective with those pings. And then it's not very, I guess, I mean, it's just an ongoing design collaboration process. You know, there's something that comes out of those conversations. I'll bring them into the co-working showcase or do a design and review, which is something that Justin's team has, where we go into detail on a couple of designs that we're currently working on. So there's like ways of collecting feedback. And then when I do feel like we're confident enough for, you know, an MVC hand, I ping my PM and engineering managers. And then from there, they go into like, you know, when they can fit it into the engineering timeline. And then they, you know, deal with like scope and breakdown from there.
Hmm. Uh, I, I just want to call out in the recording as well. Jackie just pointed out we're at time, but she is willing to stay until top of the hour. Thank you for that. I can also stick around. So, you know, if anybody needs to hop off, totally understand. But if you want to stick around, I'll stick around for another couple of minutes. And I think that what you just said, Becca, is a good like segue also into like this thing. I'm wondering like, you know, I have assumptions about who you all are collaborating with in the design process, but who were, you know, how is that working for everybody?
Also, personally, the trickiest part is identifying who is this relevant for or who will have some feedback on this. There are some things that are pajamas or foundations associated. And so, you know, Jeremy historically has done a lot of work with icons. So if something with iconography comes up, I'll usually ping him. I don't know if that's fair, Jeremy, but sometimes I'll just ping like the foundation's UX team, because I know Dan, I mean, you're often jumping in on when I use that ping, going into the foundation's channel. That's probably the trickiest part is like, especially for a newer designer, either for a more junior designer or somebody even new to GitLab, to figure out like who to involve and when. In my experience, it just comes from experience. And you really just have to like use your best judgment. Because like I said, I mean, we can't just be pinging at each other on all of the things. So I think we rely on the UX co-working channel a lot for that, because it's not adding a to-do in somebody's to-do list in GitLab, but it's like, hey, if you have some extra time right now, or you need a break on what you're working on, you know, come over to the co-working channel and there may be something there that you can collaborate with someone.
You're kind of putting it in an async opt-in place instead of an
Right.
opt-out place.
Exactly.
I'm muted. I hit space while I was focusing the wrong thing. Oops. Who's like reviewing or approving, if they're even doing that, your designs?
Well, we don't have like an approval process per se, but in my case, it's often like, did I do solution validation? Am I confident that this is the correct solution? Do I have evidence to back that up? Have I, with the engineering team, particularly the front-end engineer, have they and I agreed how to split the work? Because usually a design is a whole flow, which ends up being many small issues that also I speak with the PM about when are those issues being scheduled? Has technical writing been across it? It's really a bit case, like everything, it depends on the complexity of the feature. But I think it really ties into your previous question, which is who are you collaborating with?
Um, how much are you usually actually able to iterate on a design before it needs to get delivered?
I can speak again. I think that's up to us to push back. I remember one of the first project I worked on at GitLab, 5 rounds of solution validation because I didn't get it right, which kind of delayed the timelines of the feature. My PM was very pro UX research, and we were willing to take the time to get it right rather than building the wrong thing. So I think it's on us to push back and take the time that we need. We're delivering the right.
If it's a big project, to Katie's point, sometimes it takes a lot many rounds just to get the requirements straight. So you might be starting off like with a very blank slate sometimes, and that's when it really requires you to iterate on a design more than usual. Yeah, it totally depends on how elaborate the proposal is going to be, like how wide a problem we are catering to. And that's where I think the MVC approach comes in really handy, because you don't have to do all the it just like, I mean, it helps you in a way that there's no pressure on you to get everything right in the first go. So you can just like be sure of the high confidence things to include in the first design, and just create a proposal that as we move forward, we'll just like validate our decisions, get more user feedback on this, and that will influence what we need to do next in a proposal.
And related to this, how often are you actually able to go back to that MVC and revisit it and improve it?
I think it's up to us to advocate for that when it's important, but GitLab and other tech companies that I've worked at, this is really hard. We want to go for the new shiny feature rather than improving the existing features. So something that I've learned here is to be a little bit more ruthless in what is acceptable for the first cut, acknowledging that, priorities change and we may not be able to revisit it.
I think it's a little different for me. I don't work on new features that often, and a big part of my job is to keep revisiting the old ones. So yeah, keep on changing what already exists, because those are so complex in nature, and so there's so much packed in one feature that there's a huge scope for improvement, and users keep on pointing the issues that they run across while using them. And yeah, that's what we usually work on.
You can usually make this argument with tangible evidence. Like I got a feature revisited by working with product analytics and having a dashboard that kind of backed up why I wanted the change made with really strong graphs, charts and graphs, and that helped the prioritization.
I know when I first came to GitLab and secure and defend at that time, which became protect, which became govern, it was about moving really, really fast and showcasing the breadth of everything we wanted to do within application security or DevSecOps. And that was hard at first, because it was like, ship an MVC, okay, on to the next feature. Ship an MVC, okay, on to the next feature. And it was like, wait, we didn't include all of the, like, yes, it was MVC, but there's like so many follow-ups, UX debt, or it was just rebranded.
Delayed UX, I think. Maybe that's not what the term was. I saw that.
Deferred.
A UX deferred.
Yeah. So what's now deferred UX, like there was just tons of that sitting in a backlog, because it was like, nope, we're not going to like go deep in any one thing. We're just going to show users all of the things that we want to do, and then they can give us feedback, and then we'll like go back. And so eventually, like 3 years, it was like 3 years of that. And then it became more depth versus breadth. And so we're starting to work on that. But what I try to focus on is really like selling the idea of where I want to go with a feature to the engineers. And some of the engineers are like really excited and inspired by where we can go. they break it down into MVCs, but because they're so bought on to the vision, they're actually motivated to follow up and address that deferred UX.
So we're at super time. Thank you all for participating. Jackie, thank you for sticking around so that we can finish this up. If anybody has more things to share, please add them in the notes in the doc. And